Hello everybody, it's Dave Neal here, and we have massive updates regarding the Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni lawsuits. Last week, there were so many court documents that came out, it was virtually impossible to sift through all of them. But conspiracy theories are emerging. I'm going to share someone's belief, it's a good theory, that Justin Baldoni's side is giving Blake Lively an out. And by that I mean they are pointing her in the direction of the true villain, which might be the person who leaked all the information to her in the first place. And I know what you're thinking, Dave, no, we want justice for Justin Baldoni. We want Blake Lively to receive all of the wrath. I understand all of that. But there could be a scenario in which Blake Lively apologizes for getting it completely wrong and then also shifts the blame at the PR people that gave her possibly some information that led her down the wrong paths. Now, why is this a win for all? Well, it's certainly a win for Justin Baldoni because he would become vindicated, but it would require Blake Lively to apologize, and I mean apologize. In her apology, she could go after the PR lady who leaked messages to her. I know it's far-fetched. I'll share what the commenter has to say. I'm also going to share the wild bombshell tea that you all are jonesing for. We are willing and able to share the tea. See what I did there? Jen Abel, in her new court documents, is sharing what Stephanie Jones, I guess what the corporate lifestyle was like, calling it, lots of different choice words. We're going to jump all into it right now. So, and by the way, I want to give a shout out as I share these court documents to our pal over here, Lauren from the Court of Random Opinion. She's got it all. I mean, I thought I was busy here on YouTube, but she is literally on it like like flies on shit. She is just right on top of this thing, and she's doing a great job. So we're going to share some court filings that she was able to pull. But you guys too on the subreddit, between Team Justin Baldoni and It Ends With Lawsuits, you guys have just been fantastic. Look at this title. Jen Abel is spilling tea on the work environment at Jonesworks and Stephanie Jones' behavior. Apparently, Jones had a psychic who would tell her things about her employees. We'll get into it. Hold on. I know some of this information is things you've already heard, but it's like 250 pages of nonsense. Stephanie Jones invited to the party. So it looks like the summons, some of which we'll read, was issued by Jen Abel to Jonesworks, adding it as a defendant in the Lively versus Baldoni lawsuit. Stephanie Jones of Jonesworks was the PR company representing Wayfair and Abel's employer. So guess what? She gets to help with legal defense, legal fees, and any judgment ordered against Abel. And people commented, good. She was the catalyst for all of this. Another person said, it's my personal opinion that Jones is the real villain, the real instigator. So I'm going to share 4 different paragraphs, or maybe more, of some of the accusations made by Jen Abel against Stephanie Jones. Stephanie Jones has a terrible reputation. The Rock had just left her, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, she's a big-time PR person, but apparently when you're a PR person, you get a lot of tea about your clients. You need to protect those clients, not use that as leverage for your own personal. And again, by the way, I can understand how people can be this way. You get caught up in this gossip and power-hungry world, but you can't. You got to sort of buckle up and not let that happen. So here's a text I got from one of my fine audience members. I've been watching your videos and keeping up with the Blake Lively drama, and I had a theory on the latest batch of filings by Baldoni's team. Their last batch had a consistent theme. Stephanie Jones started this entire thing, and without her meddling, it would have been just your average Hollywood feud no one ever hears about. And I got to thinking, maybe this is Baldoni's lawyers giving Blake an off-ramp. Essentially, Blake now has a plausible narrative that Jones tricked her into believing Baldoni was running a smear campaign against her, and that's why she went to war. But it was all a lie from some lunatic trying to punish a client for leaving. If Blake ever wanted an off-ramp and narrative so she can save face, this is it. Now you might be saying, Dave, why are you giving Blake free advice here? Well, she's already got enough paid advice. I'm sure she'll be fine. Listen, if it's true, which I believe, that Blake Lively made up her claims, all of that existed before these text messages. But what we're looking at is Blake making up her claims, wanting it all to be private, wanting to keep it on the DL, and then the internet starts to hate Blake, and then she finds out through Stephanie Jones that these text messages show collusion, and that's when it becomes a full-blown story. You could argue that while Blake was setting up this wildfire by adding all of the brush and the kindling, it was the spark of Stephanie Jones' text messages that she essentially stole. Sure, they were from her employee. Maybe she had something in her contract that she had every right to keep them, but she took them off of her employee's phone, passed them off to Blake Lively. And somehow they're saying it was part of a subpoena, but we know it wasn't. No one waits for a subpoena to share text messages. You share them, and then maybe afterwards you go through some sort of subpoena. So anyway, we're going to jump into it. We're going to jump into, there are 293 pages here, and I'm just going to share 4 of them with you. So hang tight. They mentioned that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson dropped Jonesworks and all of that. Jonesworks was working for Wayfair. Wayfair was like, we don't really like this. We'll keep Jennifer Abel, and then we're just going to get rid of Jonesworks. By 2024, Jones had become increasingly embittered and hostile towards Abel. Jones frequently criticized Abel's management, manifested extreme paranoia about Abel's close relationship with clients and partners, and went out of her way to reprimand, demean, and embarrass Abel in front of junior employees she oversaw. Yeah, very much like Devil Wears Prada type of stuff. And by the way, stick around for the crazy, the psychic seeing dead people. It's going to get wild. Maybe not dead people, but we got a psychic involved. Abel's concerns about Jones. Abel is the one who's on Baldoni's side. And again, this whole thing has been bundled up and kind of represented by Brian Friedman. Abel's concern is over Jones' obvious downward spiral was heightened by the reality that there was no bottom in sight. In the final months of Abel's tenure, Jones had become even more erratic, clearly not sleeping, calling at all hours of the night in a frenzied state, senselessly pitting her own employees against each other, focusing her energy on catching employees in perceived acts of disloyalty, lowering morale still further, and torching her relationships with remaining Jonesworks clients. They're not accusing her of being on drugs or anything, but it sounds like this person's absolutely spiraling. It gets better. Although Jones had always been volatile, she now appeared to be actively unraveling. Abel was often on the receiving end of her often bizarre outbursts. In one instance, Jones announced to Abel's subordinates that she had learned through psychic readings that Abel was an alcoholic and a gambling addict. Even if these statements were true, Jones' public announcement would be, at best, highly inappropriate. Here, however, the accusations are not remotely true. They have literally no basis in reality, and the employees to whom Jones made her pronouncement were well aware of that. So I guess they could get the witness statement from these employees. I'm sure plenty would be willing to talk. While Jones presumably intended to undermine Abel's credibility, she had actually significantly undermined her own and raised alarm about whether Jones was in the midst of a mental breakdown. On a different occasion, Jones announced, again per her psychic, that Abel would soon be pregnant with twins. Excuse me. Humiliating and infuriating Abel, who Jones knew had struggled with fertility issues. So now, boy, you never want to invoke the psychic. By the way, my psychic says you guys are going to hit the subscribe button. And by the way, I'm expecting later this week we'll get a response from the judge on all these motions to dismiss between Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. There's a lot of content we are expecting to receive, so double check and make sure you are subscribed and hit the alert button. That'll make sure, because I make a lot of content and not everyone sees it. YouTube will only show you a portion of the content I make. So if you like what I do, double check, make sure you're getting all that. Abel was also disgusted by Jones' pattern and practice of creating fake social media accounts to troll former employees and journalists she deemed hostile, including Puck News' Matt Baldoni. Jones was obsessed with Baldoni in particular. And by the way, we've covered Matt Baldoni, as he, I believe, was the guy who interviewed Brian Friedman. Abel also witnessed Jones working with journalists to plant and contribute to negative stories about former Jonesworks clients who had fired Jonesworks Jones. So, upon information and belief, she's a flippin' psychopath. When Abel, and this is Devil Does PR. That's what this is. When Devil Does PR. There's a spinoff. When Abel requested, and who would be the actor for Jonesworks? Do you go with Meryl Streep? Do you cast, or is it like an Anne Hathaway, like a younger character? Who is it? And who would play Abel? Maybe I feel like Abel could be somebody that's like willing to put up a fight. Like, I don't know, maybe like an Emma Stone, right? She's like, quirky, but isn't going to take shit from anybody. When Abel or Jennifer, I don't know, Jennifer Love Hewitt, why not? Bring her back. The PR company knows what you did last summer. When Abel requested that Jonesworks offer its LA employees a modest 2% cost of living raise, Jones, who spent obscene amounts of Jonesworks money on lunches, champagne, and manicures, told her that if that were to happen, it would have to come from Abel's paycheck. Yeah, I mean, 2% cost of living raise. That's not even, inflation's 3% on a good day. Already pushing to the brink, Abel finally had enough when Jones demanded she corroborate falsified accusations about a senior Jonesworks employee in an effort to drive him out. When Abel refused to go along with it, Jones responded with mockery, calling her a 12-year-old drama queen. All right, pretty crazy stuff. Then Abel quits. She resigns from Jonesworks, and Jones ambushes Abel, steals her personal data, and tries to ruin her life, right? So we have all of that. Let's go to page 129 here. So we've already discussed that in previous filings where Jones basically gets her email, right? And by the way, if you guys want, I'll read this whole thing. Not today, but let me know if you guys want. She gets all of the information, and then Abel is just doing her thing, working for Baldoni. They think Jones is out of the picture, but Jones is plotting revenge. So, stewing in jealousy towards Abel and resentment towards Wayfarer Baldoni, Jones saw the writing on the wall. Knowing she would soon be terminated, Jones started taking steps transparently intended to make it harder to cut her loose. Those steps included sending an email after unwelcome email to Heath and others long after their relationship had irrevocably ruptured, to lay the groundwork to contest that she had been detached and non-responsive for years. This was especially galling, as Jones had been in Europe and largely incommunicado, save for a few texts of support to Baldoni. So essentially, she knows she's about to get fired, so now she's trying to do her job. In contrast with Abel, who was loyal, trusted, and even-tempered while working around the clock through the crisis, Jones seemed to be a walking disaster whose self-absorption, disloyalty, and insubordination had been a significant headache. Rather than accepting the end of the Wayfarer relationship with professionalism and decorum, Jones started threatening to sue, demanding payment for work not done, and protesting that she had done an amazing job. On information and belief. And by the way, that's how you know it's getting good. When they go to on information and belief, it's getting good. On information and belief is a phrase often used in evidence law that means the speaker does not have firsthand knowledge of the claim. We call it T. Whenever you hear upon information and belief, that's T. So it is they're basing their statement on secondary information the speaker believes to be true. So on information and belief could be BS, but it could be really true, but you can't prove it. On information and belief, tea is spilled. Jones stewed in resentment and indignity, unable to bear the loss of another Jonesworks client. She set out to take revenge on Abel, Wayfarer, Baldoni, and Nathan, exploiting the data she had unlawfully accessed and stolen from Abel's phone. On information and belief, T. Jones turned over the contents of Abel's phone to Lively and her team without a subpoena, so they could slice and dice her communications to construct a false narrative about the source of Lively's bad publicity. It slices, it dices, it's not made with subpoena, it's T. In turning over these materials to Lively, Jones knew full well that the blowback would engulf not only Abel, but also her clients, Wayfarer and Baldoni. My question is this, and this is probably what could let Blake Lively off the hook. And I know people might not like this, but if Blake Lively's side, are you listening, Michael Gottlieb? Probably, why would he? He's like, yeah, I got to go catch up on Dave Neal. Hit the subscribe button, Michael. If, upon information and belief, Blake Lively can prove, that's not the right way to use it, that Jones sent her those text messages without the upside down emoji, she could prove that Jones wasn't providing her the full context, misleading her. Again, does this mean Blake Lively's a good person? No, I mean, it still means she did what she did before, but it would have prevented these hundreds of millions of dollars of lawsuits. In turning over these materials to Lively, Jones knew full well that the blowback would engulf not only Abel, but also her clients Wayfair and Baldoni. As a result of Jones' malicious scheme, Abel's life has been turned upside down, inside out. Her career and reputation have been destroyed, her private information leaked, and her email inbox and social media pages filled with a daily stream of death threats and abuse. Upside down. Boy, you turned me inside out. How's it go? The backlash against Wayfair and Baldoni has been equally devastating, with Baldoni wrongfully labeled as a sex pest, his accolades rescinded, and his future projects thrown into doubt. Jones still has all of Abel's private photos, text messages, and personal data, which Abel has every reason to believe Jones will further exploit to nefarious ends. Yeah, I'm assuming Abel's an elder millennial. We've all got a nude or two on there. You know what I mean? They might not be the prettiest nudes. You know, you're checking on your hemorrhoids, you're looking at the moles on your back. We got nudes. We all got a nude or two. Abel lives in fear of what Jones has in store for her and for what other clients' confidences Jones is willing to divulge in her fit of pick at Abel. All of this because Abel dared to leave Jonesworks. It's kind of like Scientology in the sense that Scientology, they do the e-meter test, you know, the e-reading, and they have you deburden, right? They want you to confess to all of your dark secrets. And then they have all of these dark secrets on you. Well, if you have someone's phone, maybe you've got some information they don't want out there. It is a control tactic, very cult-like. Jones and Jonesworks conduct is not only tortuous in its own right, but also a brazen affront to the employment and labor laws of the state of California, which govern Abel's employment relationship with Jonesworks and the termination thereof, and as a result, this very dispute. So anyway, look, here's what it comes down to, is could Blake Lively use this off-ramp that they're saying Brian Friedman is giving them to say, well, this is really Jonesworks' fault? Maybe. But as I said before, they're going to have to also issue an apology, because long before Jonesworks got involved, Blake was doing the demand list and the Khaleesi's Dragons and all that jazz. So I'm not saying it is the be-all, end-all for her, but it could help if she is looking for a parachute as she free falls in a PR descent. Let me know what you guys think. And again, you know, I've said this probably about a month ago, that Blake Lively, as bad as things have gone, can still apologize. But I don't see Justin Baldoni with the world on his back here, on his side. I don't see him settling unless there's a hefty paycheck. I thought it'd be like 10 to 20 million. Some of the people we've talked to said up to 100 million. A paycheck, an apology, and also, as it looks like, finding out more information, because the only people, here's the thing, we'll end on this. The only people that really know what was said between Jones and Blake Lively is Jones and Blake Lively. So if Blake Lively wants to drop the T, which very much could happen, because at this point, there ain't no loyalty anywhere. If Blake Lively wants to drop how Jones came up to her and what Jones had, and shows that she didn't send them all the information they needed, but only selective information, then that would be extremely damning. And I think that would immediately prove malicious intent by Jones. To paraphrase, she could be fucked. So we'll have to see. But hey, you know what, Jones? Wouldn't your psychic have told you this would have happened? She should have seen this coming. All right, we'll be back with the Rush Hour podcast. That's coming next.